Oh, beautiful shot.
Oh, dear, 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 dear. Well, it is all going horribly wrong, and I think it's all over. Referee stopped it, Price is out, and it's all gone wrong in the second round. A great shot from Erkan Tepe and David Price. Well, where, oh, where from here?
Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. So apparently where David Price goes at this point in his career is facing off against Russian contender Alexander Povetkin on March 31st in Wales on the Anthony Joshua vs Joseph Parker undercard. And I played that very famous Where Oh Where clip of Price getting starched by Erkan Tepe simply because I believe it's a cautionary tale of what's probably going to happen to the Liverpudlian and what I believe is a gross mismatch. Povetkin is overmatched. No, I'm just kidding. So David Price, he is very overmatched in my opinion. I'll get to the announcement first, some of the quotes, and then to my thoughts in more detail. I'll paraphrase this first bit. It says Povetkin, he'll be defending his WBA Intercontinental and WBO International Heavyweight titles, which would be the second defense of those titles after beating Christian Hammer in December and winning them from Andrei Rudenko in July 2017. So Povetkin, he says, I'm very excited to be fighting on this huge show. I expect to put on a great performance and then go on to fight the Joshua vs Parker winner later this year. Price has other ideas as he lands a golden opportunity to take a seat at the top table in the heavyweight division, saying it's a massive, massive chance for me. It has come from nowhere. I wasn't expecting an opportunity like this to appear, so it was a no-brainer. It's a big ask for me to go out and win this fight. Big upsets do happen in sport. I've been on the wrong end of upsets in boxing, and I think I'm due a bit of luck. I have a belief that this fight has come at the right time for me, and I have a belief that I am going to win the fight. Without doing myself a disservice, every dog has its day, and I have a feeling that this is going to be my day, and everything that has happened has led to this. I have never found myself in this position where I've been the big underdog, and I have everything to gain. I will go in there completely free of any pressure, and I think people will see the best of me for that reason. Make no mistake, I am coming to win. At first, I was just grateful for the opportunity, but now in my mind, I have to win this fight. There is plenty to gain and too much upside for me not to win this fight. It could be life-changing. I am desperate to win this fight, and I will do everything in my power to do so. I know it will be a hard fight. Anything can happen in a fight, and I may have to get off the floor to win. It's going to be the hardest fight of my life, but something is telling me it's going to be my night. Sparring will be key for me. I'm going to have to take myself out of my comfort zone when it comes to sparring for this fight. I need to bring in world-class sparring partners who will test me every day. We will go away to Germany for some sparring. We haven't got any names yet, but we are having a look. In the past, I have performed my best when I've been really tested in the gym in sparring, so that will be key for this fight. I need to be prepared for what is to come because it's going to be a hard fight, and as long as I'm prepared physically and mentally, then nature will take its course. That was David Price's official statement there as part of the official press release, and quite a lengthy statement at that. So I'm not going to mince my words here, so my take on this, David Price, massive underdog, and I expect Alexander Povetkin to beat him convincingly. In fact, I'm actually worried for David Price's health because Povetkin, he can crack, and Price, he's been shown to have a more than suspect chin, dodgy punch resistance, a dodgy gas tank, and he can and does wilt when under sustained pressure. The last Christian Hammer fight, well, that was evidence of that. That was less than a year ago. I mean, you can tell by David Price's comments, he wants to go in there and do the business, but, you know, I'm not convinced he's physically or mentally prepared for the challenge. I mean, Povetkin, he outpointed Christian Hammer in December 2017, this is only a couple months ago, to take the #1 WBO ranking. It wasn't a great viewing spectacle, but he had few problems. He didn't really have any trouble beating Christian Hammer. So whereas Price, he faced Hammer, and just bear with me here, these triangle theories not always ideal, but I think there is something in this one. So he faced Hammer in early 2017, and Price, he just folded like a deck chair in under half a dozen rounds. He could barely keep himself upright at the end. I mean, he wasn't able to throw. I mean, the ref probably let it go on a little bit too long. And we know these triangle theories, they're a bit fraught, but it is an example, or was an example. David Price can no longer be considered a heavyweight who can foot it at world level. Even in his most recent comeback fight against Kamil Sokolowski in December 2017, David Price, he looked a shell of himself. He couldn't let those hands go for whatever reason, and he looked like he was fearing what may come back. He just wanted to get through the rounds, wanted to get through the fight, and it was a unanimous decision win. He apparently won all the rounds. I don't agree with that. He didn't look that good. And if he's grinding out victories of that sort of nature against low-level journeymen, Kamil Sokolowski is a durable journeyman, but he's not a high-class fighter. And if Price is sort of grinding out that sort of performance against a guy like Kamil Sokolowski, I really fear for him come March 31st. It really is a gross mismatch. And we'll just go into a little bit more of the reason why here. I mean, Alexander Povetkin, he's a top 5 consensus heavyweight in the world, with arguably one of the deepest resumes going around in terms of notable wins. Overall, he's 33-1, and the sole loss coming to Vladimir Klitschko. Povetkin, he hits hard, he's got a good chin, and it honestly would be a massive, massive, massive upset if Price was able to beat him. I just don't see it. But it is boxing after all. Strange things and unexpected things, they can and do happen. Povetkin, I guess, on, you know, if we give a little bit of leeway on this, just to sort of make a case for David Price here, he is 38 after all. He has been slowing down a little bit. He hasn't looked like vintage Povetkin in the past year or so. But really, I mean, I expect him to be too much for David Price. I don't think Povetkin has lost so much as to lose to someone like David Price, who's clearly a shell of his former self. I'm only giving David Price a 5 to 10% shot. I mean, you know, maybe that's even being generous in itself, of getting the win. And for that to happen, getting the win, he's going to need to be at his best. He's going to have to land a perfect big right hand. We know he's got that in him, but that may be all that's left. The other thing I wanted to get to is the why of why this fight is happening at all. And simply put, Povetkin, he is the mandatory challenger, or will be ordered as the mandatory challenger in both the WBA and WBO at some point. You know, one or the other, whichever comes first, really. We'll have to see how things shake down. But he's going to get a crack at some point this year if he gets past David Price. So either Anthony Joshua or Joseph Parker is eventually going to have to face him. They won't be able to avoid it. So in the case of Anthony Joshua winning, Povetkin, he would likely be the next opponent. As I think, you know, the unification with the WBC belt holder, whoever it is at that time, it's likely to be at the back end of this year, or potentially even in 2019. I think that's more realistic, actually. So to help sell a Povetkin versus Joshua clash to the masses, Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua's promoter, he needs to sort of put in a bit of groundwork now. He needs to start building some buzz for it. So taking out a name, a well-known name with casuals, David Price on March 31st, on the undercard, beating him in emphatic fashion, it's a good way of doing that. He wants casual fans to think, geez, this Povetkin guy is good. He'd be a good test for Joshua, and so on and so forth. But Povetkin, he does have to look good. He's got to go in there, do the business, get Price out of there. So there is a little bit of pressure on him to perform. Because say he struggles past Price, he gets him out of there maybe later on, or potentially it goes, you know, deep into the fight, but he looks terrible in beating Price, then Hearn may have to look for other options next for Anthony Joshua. Say a Jarrell Miller, or potentially bring the unification with the WBC belt holder forward. So there's lots of moving parts with this whole thing. And clearly Anthony Joshua, he has to keep winning, he has to beat Joseph Parker Alexander Povetkin, he also has to win. He's got to beat David Price, and really, he's got to look good in doing so. And some of it will also depend on when the sanctioning bodies order the fights between their champ and the mandatory challenger. But what Eddie Hearn is doing, he's giving himself and Anthony Joshua another viable option to pursue should he beat Joseph Parker on March 31st. So it's a smart play from Eddie Hearn, and it actually helps fill out that undercard with some, I mean, like I say, it is a mismatch, but there's some intrigue there. I mean, I want to see where Alexander Povetkin is at, because it'll be a good gauge for any upcoming fights. I mean, David Price, I mean, people like seeing David Price. You don't really know what's going to happen because he's so unpredictable. He could come out there and put on the performance of his life, and in doing so, I think we'd all be a bit surprised, but maybe not completely shocked, because he's just that kind of guy. And the other times when he has been expected to win, say against Tepper or Tony Thompson both times, and then sort of failed dismally, you were kind of like, oh, well, I didn't see that coming. He should have done better because he's got the talent. Maybe not the chin, though. So we are going to have to see on March 31st where David Price is at. And who knows? I mean, you can never really pick it with Pricey. And on the outside chance that Price wins, he automatically puts himself in a good position for a tilt at the winner of Joshua Parker. It's a remote chance, but it will be there for him. And that's why he says he's got everything to fight for. And it's completely true. And I agree with him, the pressure's not on him because, let's face it, you know, if we recap this whole, if you look at it from the outside, Price versus Povetkin, complete mismatch. Complete mismatch. David Price really has no business at this point in his career being in the same ring as Alexander Povetkin. I don't like it. I don't think it's going to be competitive. And if David Price is seriously injured, then Eddie Hearn, he'll have a lot to answer for. So, yeah, I don't give David Price much of a shout on March 31st, but it's going to be intriguing, you know, whatever happens. Just because it's David Price and, you know, Alexander Povetkin. A lot of casuals may have heard of his name in passing, but they don't really know who he is. So it could build him up as a, you know, the Russian is coming sort of thing. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.